Today, Gaming America is sitting with Sanjay Thakur, the CEO and CTO of Verdict MMA, a new app that provides an innovative approach to betting on mixed martial arts. Thank you for sitting with us today, Mr. Thakur.
Thank you for having me, Cameron.
Quite all right. So first question, I guess is sort of a more personal one, but as CEO and CTO, sounds like you have a slightly interesting background. I was wondering if you could tell our viewership of how you got to the point where you're overseeing this betting app. What is your professional history?
Yeah, for sure. So it all started off with working at a lot of startups and then slowly falling in love with the app development process. And from there, kind of falling in love with creating a business. So it all started off with working at a couple of startups, eventually worked at a startup called ClassPass. Throughout my career, I've always been observing people in both the product space and design space. And me, myself, I was in the engineering side of things, but viewing things from a product perspective and design perspective have always been very interesting to me. So things sort of just aligned as time went on, as we created this app. And I've been able to apply my expertise in those areas. And eventually, I'm able to offer a lot of perspective on the engineering side, and then controlling the roadmap as well as kind of the direction in terms of design. And so I really love those three things, and so that's how I got to where I am, and I continue to every day kind of apply those three and improve those three as time goes on. And so yeah.
Excellent. And moving on, could you describe exactly what Verdict MMA does? Just describe the app itself.
Yeah, so it's transitioned from a lengthy history. So it kind of started off in 2013, where me and my friends, co-founders Mandeep and David, were watching a fight. It was GSP versus Hendricks back in 2013, and so we're all watching this together, as we do. We usually go to Mandeep's house and we watch this together with a bunch of guys. And we're watching the fights, and we're huge fans of GSP, right? We're all Canadians. We live in Toronto, and nothing brings us more joy than watching GSP fight. And this fight night, GSP happens to be fighting Johnny Hendricks. And by the end of it, we're all a little confused. We're kind of like, who won? Like, we want to kind of say GSP won, but really we think Hendricks might have taken it. And so we were kind of curious as to what other people thought. And so by that time, I went through my first job, which was just being a contractor at a company. And I wanted to kind of make something more for the MMA space. And so creating a scoring app kind of seemed like the thing that didn't exist right now, and that would sort of help fighters by bringing more transparency into the sport so that they're able to better evaluate where they stand between rounds, but also where the match kind of left off. In other sports, you have a scoreboard, right? Basketball has the score on the screen at all times, but MMA doesn't have something like that. And so for us, we really wanted to create something like that. And using all of our expertise, MMA being something we all loved, Mandeep being really plugged into the MMA space, me having my expertise with software and product, it just made sense. And as time went on, we sort of continued with that trajectory. We added fight predictions in as well, so that you could sort of mingle with your friends before and kind of lock in your predictions beforehand. And then afterwards, you could say, I thought, I knew this outcome was going to happen. And so people really enjoy that aspect. And so just last year, we were able to raise a seed round based off of our user base, and by pitching another sort of category that we could go into.
Which is sports betting.
That's right. That's right. So another thing where the stars just seem to align. And so, for us, it was pitching daily fantasy sports. So we came up with the concept of Verdict tournaments. We saw how regulators were moving throughout North America. And the UK market is pretty mature, but in the US, sports gambling was becoming legal everywhere. There were a lot more defined rules around daily fantasy sports and what it means to be a daily fantasy sports operator in America. Early in the decade, it wasn't really a well-defined thing. You wouldn't really know if you were breaking the law or anything like that, and certain operators just went ahead with it anyways. But now that it was becoming a thing, and the space was getting a lot of coverage, and a lot of numbers were coming out into how big the space was, we really thought this was a way to sort of fuel our passion, which was we really wanted to create tools for MMA engagement, so that when you're watching fight night, you always have your fight night companion on the side, and it's just giving you information. You're able to engage with your friends on it. You're able to learn more about the fighters with it. But what DFS enables us to do is to kind of throw fuel on the fire and to be able to generate revenue so that we can support all those features that we want to create. Because a lot of those features that we're creating don't really bring in revenue. But DFS not only brings in revenue, but is actually a fantastic form of engagement. Before, a lot of our audience would say they don't want to play the game for free because they don't see the point. But now that we have a DFS component, Verdict tournaments, we're able to bring people in, kind of increase the stakes, as well as get people to engage with their friends more. So before, you were placed on a global leaderboard against everybody else, and now we have individual pools, and so you can 1v1 your friend, for example, or you could play a double up match with 10 people in a pool, and if you land in the top 50%, you get paid out. And really, we're leveraging our powers here. We're the first niche DFS platform out there, and we're really leveraging our advantage, which is we're really in tune with our community. It's not really transactional. In a lot of other daily fantasy sports companies, it's really transactional. You're kind of taking the same salary model and you're applying it across the board to various sports. And in some cases, it doesn't really make sense. I'm not sure how they apply it to like The Bachelor or other sort of spaces. But with MMA, it's kind of weird to have the salary model because you can pick two fighters that are fighting each other. And then you can also, you're also using these stats that people don't really care much for. You're using stats like significant strikes and things like that. But really what people really care about when they're talking to each other in the MMA space is who they think is going to win and how they think they're going to win. And so we were able to take our free game, we're able to do a study on all the data that we had over the past years and really show that it's a game of skill and that people with more fight IQ generally do tend to land higher on the leaderboard. And so using that, we're able to make the argument that this is a DFS game. And then from that point on, we're able to say, we want to create a really engaging experience. Let's put some memes in there. Let's make sure each tournament has like memes associated with it. Has like, the fighters, has themes based off of the fighters. And so that's kind of the direction that we were headed in.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. You have a few things going on there, it seems. For one, I didn't realize it had started as a MMA sort of platform, long before it was at all a betting platform. But it's also interesting the social aspect. So are people just betting against their friends or their contemporaries, I guess?
Yeah, I just want to clarify that it's not betting technically, it's daily fantasy sports. And so, in the future, it's something we want to definitely explore. Right now, we're just at the beginning of getting a pulse on how the product works and how the community is interacting with it. And in the future, seeing the state of Ontario and how gambling sort of progressing there, it'll be great to kind of investigate that and see what we can do there. But for now, we're just focusing on the DFS component. But going back to your question, how can people engage with their friends with the product? It's interesting. Like we really think about interactions that we have as fight fans when it comes to our product. And so some interactions that we've had in the past have been like John Jones versus DC. It's like a split crowd when it comes to big fights like that, right? It's not really something that is seen in other sports because these matchups are hyped over the span of months, whereas in other sports you sort of have these matchups kind of come up as a blip and then it happens really quickly and then there isn't really a ton of buildup. And so we really took that and kind of observed our friends and just for example, John Jones and DC, you'd have friends just talk about it like, ad nauseum for a very long time. And
Yeah.
at the end of the day, you don't know what to do. But now what you can do is you can go to head to head with your friend, and you can actually fight your fight IQ, or you can battle your fight IQ between two friends and see who knows the card better. And so having a 1v1 where you make all your picks on the card, you say who you think is going to win, how they're going to win for each fight. Your
Mhm.
friend does the same. You guys join the same 1v1, and then we have an algorithm based off of who you've picked and how you think they're going to win. And that algorithm gives you a score. And then if your score is higher than your friends, then you win. And so we have different types of pools available as well. So if you're more risk tolerant, then there are pools where only the 10% get paid, but you'll get paid a lot more, like a 10x.
Yep.
But if you're less risk tolerant, then maybe you want to join a double up where the top 50% are able to double up. And I can see that becoming very popular for some people because if you know that you're just more in tune with the sport and you're able to land in that top 50%, it's an easy double up for you. And so I can really see people kind of joining in during fight night, trying to be a little bit more engaged, do a little bit more research on each fighter as they're making the pick.
Yeah.
And that's also what's more interesting about our DFS model rather than sports betting. With sports betting, someone might just pick who they think is going to win on the final match, the main card. And so that doesn't really engage you across the entire fight card. In a fight card that might have like up to 8 fights, as a sports bettor, you might just be picking who you think is going to win at the end there. But with our model, you have to select across the board who you think is going to win. And so what that does is it really causes you to do a bit more research, makes you look into each fighter individually, and that can really shed light on some superstars that are just a bit down the card.
And it requires the user to be a much bigger MMA fan to know the intricacies of what goes on in a fight rather than just a bettor. Would you say?
That's true. Yeah. Exactly. Like, the fact that you're forced to pick how they're going to win is kind of a big one. So that's totally right that you have to know a little bit more about the intricacies. One thing I didn't mention is you also get to pick how you want, if you want to put more weight on a certain fight than another. And so that's sort of our XP split that you can do. And so what that allows you to do is if you're more confident in a fight and you know the outcome's going to happen for sure, you can bet a bit more, not bet, but wager a bit more on that. And that way you're able to accumulate more points and come out ahead. And so it's really interesting to have that model in there because that really mixes things up, really creates diversity across the board. So that people aren't just picking the most popular picks. It's kind of like, which one are you more confident about as well?
Sure. I wanted to ask, so you mentioned going into the sports betting sort of arena as time goes on. How far in the future is this, and have you thought about what that would look like?
Yes, we've raised a seed fund last year, and when we raised that seed fund, we had a full gamut of investors behind us. And actually, when we made the announcement for Verdict tournaments, a lot of people were trying to guess what's gonna come out, right? Like people didn't know what Verdict tournaments was before it came out, and a lot of people were guessing crypto games and things like that. But if they took a look at our investment banking, they would have discovered that we have a ton of insiders in the betting space. People like Chris Grove and Sean Hurley from DraftKings, and many others, David Sargent, Seth Shore, Robbie from Avenue H Capital. And these guys are really insiders in the sports betting space. And so being able to tap into them and ask them a lot of these questions, like you're asking us, it's super valuable. And so what that path can kind of look like, going back to your question, is kind of getting a good for what the metrics are telling us. Being product focused, we're not just creating whatever we think's cool and putting it out there. It's kind of like we want to kind of hear back from our community and then react to that. And so right now that we've released Verdict tournaments last Friday, we're taking a look at the metrics within our app, and we're looking at how do people interact with this, and how are people enjoying this? How do people convert from the free game? How many new people are now coming to the app because we do have that angle of real money? And so that recipe will tell us a lot of information. It'll tell us a lot of information about our total addressable market. It'll tell us a lot of information in terms of how much our MMA fans willing to wager and put on the line and play with every single week. What's the average ticket? What's the average number of tickets that a fight fan will play? And so based off of those numbers, we can decide to slow down or accelerate the timeline to a sports book. We're not in any sort of hurry. Like, the goal right now is creating something that people really love, that people are willing to tell their friends about without us sort of nudging them to do so with some referral program. And once we've created a product like that, I feel like we're going to know so much more about fight fans and what they want. And at that point, we'll be able to create a sportsbook that's even better based off of that knowledge. But right now, we just don't seem to have the product metrics. We just launched last Friday, and our first event's going to be UFC 275 this weekend. But after that, we'll have a lot more information. Right now, it's sort of a guessing game. Like, what do people want? And like, what kind of ticket sizes, what kind of entry fees are they willing to, what kind of contests are they willing to buy into and things like that. But come UFC 275, we'll have a better idea. And then working our way into July, International Fight Week, we'll have an even better idea as we go through all these events. And that's sort of like, the pinnacle of the year. That's sort of the big week for MMA.
And so at this point, what does your sort of marketing strategy look like?
Yeah. So,
or are you just going slow on that while you work out the kinks?
Yeah. So it sounds like you know the idea. It's like right now, kind of going full out isn't something that would be wise. Working in the product space and startup space, it's really about finding product market fit first. And so once we find product market fit, we can really go all out with marketing and ensure that we're sort of catching everybody that we're reaching out to. Somebody that would be in our demographic kind of sticks as opposed to bounces off, which might happen in the first few weeks of a launch of any company. And so it's exactly what you mentioned, which is right now we're kind of doing our conventional marketing models, which is social media. And we have an amazing social media team. Mandy does such a good job on that side. And really that channel has sort of allowed us to really tap into the niche. The biggest MMA fans are just on Twitter waiting for the news to come live straight to them from like, the big people in the sport. Right. And so being on social media has been like really fruitful for us. But once we've found something that's, really sticky and we've really gotten that product market fit, then we're looking at sort of tapping into other marketing channels, a lot of paid marketing channels. So again, going back to like, how can we leverage our advantages? Being able to tap into fighters would be phenomenal. Activating fighters, having fighters associated with contests would be great. There's a lot of micro communities within the MMA space where people give like betting advice. People generally just have their takes on like certain things in MMA. Tapping into those communities is going to be really advantageous for us. And so really we're just doubling down on our strengths, which we really need to do as a company that operates within a niche.
Sure. Well, those are the questions I have for you today. Thank you so much for speaking with us, Mr. Thakur, and good luck on your endeavor with Verdict MMA.
Thanks, Cameron. It was a pleasure speaking with you.